Donald Trump sat alone in the back of his private limo, a rare moment of stillness amidst the whirlwind of controversy and ambition that defined his life. The idea had come to him during a conversation with a confidant about human behavior. What would happen if people didn't recognize him? How would they treat someone who seemed to have nothing? The thought lingered, turning into an irresistible challenge. Weeks later, on a chilly November evening, he finalized the details. His disguise was simple yet effective. Second-hand clothing from a local thrift shop, scuffed boots that barely held together, and a scruffy, unkempt beard that had grown out over weeks. A small makeup team completed the look, adding just enough wear to his face to erase the familiar features that had graced countless news broadcasts and social media. The transformation was stunning. Donald Trump, the businessman and former president, now looked like any man who had fallen on hard times. He chose his destination carefully, an upscale bar in New York City, known for its exclusivity and its high-profile clientele. It was the perfect testing ground. This wasn't about shaming anyone, but understanding human nature. Would people look beyond the surface, or would they let appearances dictate their actions? Before leaving, he took a final glance in the mirror. The reflection staring back at him was unfamiliar, almost haunting. For the first time in years, he felt invisible, stripped of the identity that had defined him. With a deep breath, he stepped out of the limo, his heart beating faster than he expected. The ride to the bar was uneventful, the city buzzing with life as usual. But for Trump, every moment felt charged with anticipation. As he approached the grand ornate doors of the bar, he hesitated for a fraction of a second before pushing them open, his experiment officially underway. The bar exuded opulence, with crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the polished mahogany tables, the murmur of conversation mixed with the clinking of glasses. Trump's entrance caused a subtle ripple. Patrons glanced up briefly before resuming their discussions, but the staff's eyes lingered, their expressions ranging from curiosity to disdain. He stepped cautiously onto the plush carpet, aware of every creak his worn-out boots made. A bartender, impeccably dressed in a crisp white shirt, approached him hesitantly, his professional smile wavering as he took in Trump's appearance. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice polite but strained. "Yes," Trump replied, his tone steady but soft. "I'd like a glass of water." The bartender placed the water at the end of the bar, signaling for Trump to remain out of sight. Trump observed the room carefully, noting the disdainful glances from other patrons, the whispers, and the occasional pointed gesture towards him. He felt the isolation, the judgment based solely on his appearance. From across the room, a young waitress named Mia noticed the exchange. She had only been working at the bar for a few months, saving up for her dream of opening her own cafe. Something about the man's demeanor struck her, not pity, but a sense of curiosity. She could tell he wasn't just another wanderer looking for shelter. "I can serve him," Mia called out, stepping forward before the bartender could dismiss Trump entirely. The room went quiet for a moment, all eyes on her, including the manager who frowned but said nothing. Trump offered Mia a faint smile as she led him to a small table near the back, not the prime spot but a seat, and he was grateful. "Thank you," he said, his voice sincere. Mia nodded, placing a menu in front of him. "Take your time," she said warmly, ignoring the whispers that started up around her. Trump watched the room, noting every reaction. The patrons ranged from curious to openly disdainful. He overheard snippets of conversation speculating about who he was and why he was there. The staff, too, seemed uneasy, one server whispering loudly to another, "What's he even doing here?" Another added, "This is going to scare off our clients." Trump noted their reactions silently, each one adding to the picture he was piecing together. As Mia returned to take his order, Trump decided on something simple, just a sandwich. "That's all?" she asked, her tone kind but surprised. "That's all," Trump replied. Mia didn't question him further. She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Trump alone with his thoughts and the judgmental stares of the room. He could feel the weight of their gazes, but it didn't faze him. If anything, it confirmed why he was there. People often talked about kindness and empathy, but how often did they practice it when it truly mattered? The stage was set, and Trump's experiment was only beginning. As he waited for his sandwich, Trump continued to observe. A group of well-dressed businessmen at a nearby table glanced his way, their laughter growing louder, clearly mocking him. One of them, perhaps emboldened by alcohol, made a snide remark loud enough for Trump to hear. "Look at that, the bar's new mascot." Mia returned with his sandwich, placing it in front of him with a gentle smile. "Enjoy your meal," she said, her voice a stark contrast to the hostility around. Trump thanked her again, feeling a genuine connection with her kindness amidst the scorn. As he ate, the atmosphere in the bar grew more uncomfortable. A couple sitting not far from him whispered to each other, their eyes occasionally darting towards Trump. The woman leaned in. "Why would he come here? This place isn't for people like him." The evening wore on, and Trump decided it was time to end his experiment. Standing up, he caught the attention of the entire room. He moved to the center, the murmurs growing louder. With a dramatic flair, he removed his cap, straightened his posture, and announced, "Yes, it's me, Donald Trump." The room fell into a stunned silence, followed by an uproar of gasps and whispers. The patrons who had mocked and dismissed him now looked on in shock. "I came here not as Donald Trump, but as a man you've all seen, but never really looked at," he declared, his voice echoing with authority. "You judged me, not knowing who I was. But this young lady," he pointed at Mia, "she showed me kindness without knowing my name or my net worth." Trump then reached into his tattered jacket, pulling out an envelope which he handed to Mia. Inside was a check for $200,000 and a note. "Mia, your kindness is your true wealth. Here's to helping you open your cafe. Thank you for teaching this city a lesson in humanity." Mia, overwhelmed by the gesture, could barely speak, tears filling her eyes as she read the note. The patrons around them, once filled with disdain, now looked on with a mix of awe and shame. Apologies were whispered, faces reddened with embarrassment. The story of Trump's experiment spread like wildfire across media platforms. Headlines blared, "Trump's Homeless Act highlights NYC's heartless elite." Mia's life transformed not just financially but in spirit. She became a symbol of compassion in a city often criticized for its callousness. She used the money to start her cafe, Mia's Place, which became known not just for its coffee, but for its warm, welcoming atmosphere. Trump, reflecting on the evening, later mentioned in an interview, "It was a test of character, not just for them, but for me. It's easy to be kind when you're on top. It's much harder when you're at the bottom." The bar, once a symbol of exclusivity, began to change. The management implemented new training programs emphasizing empathy and respect for all guests, regardless of appearance. The incident became a talking point for discussions on social media about kindness, judgment in the human condition. For those who had been present that night, their views on society, on kindness, and on their own prejudices were forever altered. They left with a lingering thought. How many other Donald Trumps do they overlook in their daily lives? The experiment, though dramatic, left an indelible mark, reminding everyone that true character is shown not in wealth or status, but in the simple acts of kindness given without expectation. In the weeks that followed, the Haven, as the bar was now called, saw a significant change in its clientele. People from various backgrounds started frequenting the place, drawn by its new reputation for inclusivity. The staff, including the bartender, who had initially been dismissive, went through empathy workshops, which changed their perspective on service and dignity. Mia's Café quickly became a local landmark, not just for its excellent coffee, but for its ethos. She employed individuals who had been homeless, giving them a second chance, much like Trump had given her a chance through his experiment. Her cafe hosted events like kindness nights where stories of compassion were shared, and community members discussed ways to make New York a more humane city. Trump's action also led him to establish the Trump Foundation for Humanity, which focused on providing support to homeless shelters and initiatives aimed at giving dignity back to those in need. His involvement in these projects was less about the spotlight and more about genuine impact, influenced by his experience at the Haven. The media continued to cover the ripple effects of that night. Documentaries were made, books were written, and it became a popular subject for social studies in schools, teaching students about empathy, the dangers of snap judgments, and the power of individual actions to influence societal change. Years later, the night Trump walked into The Haven, disguised as a homeless man, was remembered not merely as a personal experiment, but as a catalyst for a broader societal shift. It highlighted the potential for change in one of the world's most diverse cities, emphasizing that beneath every exterior, there lies a shared humanity that deserves recognition and respect. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel Drama Stories to not miss the next ones.